So I want to give y'all a little treat. And this is how to use the law of attraction to deal with difficult managers in particular. This can be applied to difficult people in general, but I have realized, maybe not unintentionally, but that I've basically have a solution for any manager I've ever had an issue with now. And I've been doing it, mastering it now for like the last year. So kind of like a reference point, I've always had difficulties with people higher than me. And this is not to be innocent, like I don't do anything or that I've never had issues. But for more over the issues I've ever had with these like people of higher levels was never behavioral on my end. It was almost always based off of whatever we have going on energetically and their own energies. So like a lot of them were bullies. A lot of them like to pick on people who had a lower energy. And I did have that growing up and even into my adulthood. But the last 2 years has been interesting as I've been applying these knowledge and this understanding actively. One thing I've gotten really good at is using law of attraction or the law of cause and effect in terms of relationships. Don't know why that particular one I'm actually really good at, but it is something I am. And I'm going to tell you this. So here's what you do when you have a difficult manager. I'm going to give like two major examples, actually maybe three. So two on accident. So I had this coworker who eventually became a supervisor. But when I had a coworker, I came in and I could tell she was immediately, she was very against LGBT, right? She was very transphobic, very homophobic. And I could figure that out. And it was kind of rough because I was going in there, I was trying to do my best and I felt like very off. And this was before I had any knowledge. Like this is before I had my quote unquote awakening. And as I started to learn how to manifest, how to attract and repel, how to actually remove things from your life and attract things into your life. With her, it took a while. But at a certain point in time, I realized that the best thing I could do to her is ignore her, to keep neutral, not to think about her, not to talk about her, not to do anything, but like do my job. Funnily enough, what happened then is she moved to a different shift. And then eventually over the course of a year, she moved into a whole different store. And I heard she's fired, but that got nothing to do with me. That's on her. Then I had another manager that switched, right? Male manager. And he was a racist Trump supporter. I'm not saying this to be political in any way. I'm just saying that's what he was, right? White dude, Trump supporter. It was very fake. He would like talk to you in a way that makes you think that he cared. He would pretend to care, but on the back end, he would really fuck you over. I would get hours, I would lose hours, and this was over the time where I'm still trying to practice these things. So of course, my state in this situation is still responsible, right? What I'm putting out is still bringing in these sort of people, and I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with it, but still dealing with my own emotional issues and trauma and all those sorts of things, right? And I think this is important to bring up, is that if you're still dealing with like the emotional, like what they call the pain body. So like when you get triggered by something, when your emotions are so intense because you've repressed them, it's a lot harder to do the shift that I'm talking about. But I did do it. So eventually, in both situations, in this situation, he was able to leave in maybe less than a year. I think he had, maybe it was only like a summer. It was like 3 or 4 months. And after the end of the summer, we had a new manager. So unfortunately she left too, but I actually did like her. So that was just kind of a change. But what I did there, and what took me a little bit longer, it took less than a few years, took less than a year and a half with this manager, is that I just decided that I'm just going to do my job, do the best I can. And this way, and at this moment I started to become better at applying these techniques and applying this fundamental knowledge, where I was just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna look at the positive of it, and not to get too messed up about stuff. If it happens, it happens. I'm gonna let it fall off. I'm not gonna hold on to it. I'm not gonna hold on to a grudge. And I realized now retrospectively that was one of the things I did successfully, was first end up being neutral, stop focusing on the negative aspects, which is something we tend to do, right? It's easy when a person who's hateful or bigoted or incompetent or has power over you, or at least seemingly has power over you, does things that make it feel like you have less power, that you are being oppressed, that you are being misused, and then to react out of it. That's natural. You're not bad for doing that. That's what most human beings do. It'd be weird if you didn't. But when you realized how magnetism works, how the law of attraction works, you realize when you actually want something, you do the opposite of what you normally do. And so I just worked. I didn't cause a fuss. You may think that I may have just accepted it. And a part of me kind of did, right? I didn't really know I was doing it. But he got up and he left. He got pulled to another store. Now, by the time this new manager comes in, so I've gone through almost a year now, managers I did like leave, and now some new managers came in. Funnily enough, this one lasted less than a month. And this time I knew exactly what I was doing. So he comes in, and he's not like bad like the other two, right? So it's not necessarily like he was like someone I really wanted to go, which I maybe made it even better. But I could feel myself being stressed out. He was this kind of person who's very stressed, very anal retentive about how to run stuff. And while it's fine, I know how to do my job. I don't need someone to tell me how to do my job. And I don't need someone coming here to not just that, but always constantly coming to me to dump and complain about stuff. So when that happened, I was like, okay, I know how I'm feeling. And I actually don't want to be around him. Not for anything, nothing bad to happen to him. Just nothing would be around him. But this time, this year. This is actually within the last couple of weeks. I would say less than a month. This has been a month and a half at most. I'm already I've been dealing with this stuff for 3 years now. I know how to do it. So I shift. I immediately shift. I realize what I want. And I shift. Not only do I shift, I go above and beyond. And this is how I knew it goes faster. Every time I see him, we laugh, we talk. I say nothing. I never speak a bad thing about him. I don't think a bad thing about him. I just think about what I want and how I want it. I only give out good, positive vibration. Funnily enough, we realized that he is actually gonna go soon. He was here temporarily, and funny enough, he said, "Well, I don't know how long, right? Because these processes, he was getting like a new store, he's moving up, but these processes can take months." Maybe even years, right? Because it depends on what stores are open and how things work. Tell me why within a week he disappears and I don't ever see him again without even a goodbye. And I didn't even think about it. I just saw that a few days he wasn't here. He's on the schedule, but he hasn't shown up. Realizing he had already transferred. It had moved so fast, and in my mind, I had already been accepted. I'm like, okay, well, he's going to be here today. I'm just going to accept it. And I'll accept it. I'm going to embrace it, right? And the reason I give these three examples, because I'm going to break down actually how you do this. But the reason I give these three examples is important because it shows you how much each works, each like state of being works. So if you go pure neutral, which you can, it's not a problem. I've noticed that does take longer though. I don't know why. That I can't really tell you. But pure neutral it takes quite some time for stuff to manifest. That's why when people talk about detachment or using the law of attachment, in my opinion, is great if you struggle to have positive emotions about something. If this is a circumstance you hate, to force yourself to be positive almost will never work. Right? You'll just fall back into your negative feeling state, which will magnetize those things again. If you can do neutral, that's the best option for you. Because what it allows you to do is feel your emotions, allow them to release or come out, leave your body, leave your aura field, and then it neutralizes. So when it neutralizes, you're not repeating the cycle. But what I've noticed is, and here's my assumption, I don't know if this is correct, but this is what I think. What I think is if you're not adding anything new on top of it, you're not really creating a new experience. So while that experience will run out because it doesn't have anything feeding it, it will take longer. Nothing's really pushing it out, right? It's finding, it has to almost like it has to find its other frequency, right? Because you're matching the frequency, you stop matching it, it finds its other frequency eventually. What I've noticed is when I go from neutral to willingness to being like, okay, I'm just gonna accept how it is, a little bit higher, it's a little faster. This time I go from straight embracing it. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be friendly as hell. I'm gonna, every single time he's gonna tell me what to do something, he might micromanage the hell out of me. And I hate being micromanaged. That's it. But I'm just gonna accept it completely, 100%. I'm gonna go above and beyond. And I did that. Phew, out of here. Out of here. So quickly that it took me by surprise. It really did. I was surprised. And now with this confidence, I know that anytime I deal with a difficult person that I feel is difficult, I know the best thing I can do is to embrace them. Now, this depends. This took me at least 3 years to figure this out. But I'm giving this to you to make you understand that when you are dealing with a difficult person, in this case a manager, but this could be a parent, this could be a teacher, someone at school, a partner, if you either want them out or say you don't really want them out but you want them to change. Sometimes you want a person to change. Sometimes you want someone in your life but you want them to be different. Instead of forcing them, instead of getting angry, instead of feeling like it is, or instead of trying to focus, simply go within, learn to regulate yourself, your emotions. That's key. Emotion regulation is key. Having a good foundation in metaphysics is key. Understanding that this is energy, the world is energy, the universe is energy, and it responds to your energetic field, which is thoughts, emotions, beliefs, words, actions. Your whole package, how you exist, is giving out energy all constantly, and that's bringing and repelling what's within you. When you have that understanding and clear that you know that's how it works, so you've experienced this and you're good at regulating your emotions, you got to what's called shift, which is shifting your attention. You figure out what you don't want, you realize what you do want, you shift to that. And the best way it looks like is it looks like you've changed person. If a person you've had constant back and forth arguments with, if you stopped arguing with them, even if you did neutrally and you just never argued, they would find it weird. And at first it may seem kind of wacky, so they might rise it up. That understand that that's not really them, right? I don't want to say everyone's you pushed out, but understand that that's more vibrationally than it is them trying to attack you. Now, understand this is the reason where you're not in physical danger. Things are a little different there. If it's more an emotional stress, if it's more like wearing you down sort of interactions, if it's like weaponizing competence, your best bet is to shift. And when I mean shift, is almost act as if you're dealing with the best version of themselves. That's what you're gonna do. Think and imagine the person you're doing is that they're 100, 120, 180 changed, and they're like the best person. And or think about them as like a person you want to hang out with, that you love to be around, that you can't help but be obsessed with. Shift to that perspective and see how they change, because you're actually interacting with a part of them that wants to, and they'll feel they need to change, or they leave. Right? Something just the universe just resets it. But you have to persist it though. And you have to really be sincere in it. If you fake it, the universe knows. Which is why it's fine to just go neutral. Neutral is always fine. Just, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. But that's how I figured out, through trial and error and study, how to deal with any sort of difficult people, into where I don't have to worry about this. I'm not worried about difficult customers. I'm not worried about difficult people on the street. I'm not worried about ICE or the police or transphobic people in the world, because I understand that this doesn't just work for managers, just works anywhere, everywhere. And I use this in all my relationships, unconsciously, but now consciously. When I want something from somebody, or I want someone to be a certain way, I shift to where my brain is focused on them, like we're best friends. And either they switch off, typically if I want them to leave, they leave, or they become different, then they're more manageable. But that's what you have to do. You have to focus inward and maintain that attention. A few tips: working on your attention is good, because when those emotions may slip, when a reaction happens, you want to be able to have something that you put a lot of attention on, that you can easily switch back to. But I think that's it.